Hello, my friend, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Full Rides Again, the podcast where I, Jinx, your host and imaginary friend, answers the burning question: what happens when you release a rider into the wild and he gets the chance to explore the world? So if you've ever been interested in topics such as plot development, world building, character creation, or even character motivation, then this is a podcast for you, so please stay tuned. With that being said, let's get the show on the road and continue to answer the question of what happens when you release a rider into the Amazon. What better way to do that than start off with a couple scenarios? First scenario being this: imagine you're an individual who is hungry, and you grew up hearing the phrase, give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man a fish and he'll eat for his lifetime. But the trouble with this is, you don't live near any water. You are in the desert, and there are no real animals for you to hunt. So you think to yourself, how am I going to get some food? And you're wandering around the desert, slowly collapsing under starvation, and you see a little hole in the sand. And you know it's a stupid idea, but you decide to stick your walking stick that you've managed to carry throughout the desert into the hole, and you manage to drag out a giant spider. You kill it, and you start eating the spider. What happens next? If that's a little too disgusting for you, how about this scenario instead? Imagine you got stuck in the middle of a jungle and you're trying to find your way home. You found a trail that you think you took to get there, and you start following it, and there are signs along it indicating that someone passed by there, but you can't remember if those are signs that you left or if those are signs that belong to another person altogether. And turns out you're still wandering in a circle, more and more, getting further and further lost. And just as you're about to give up and night is falling on you, you see a beam of moonlight shining down through the canopy, illuminating a giant butterfly. And the butterfly is absolutely amazing to you, and as you get closer to it, it starts to fly away, and you think you scared it off, but it doesn't go too far, and you're still interested in it, so you move closer to it again, and it flies farther along. And after repeating this a couple times, you realize this butterfly is trying to lead you somewhere, and you start following the butterfly further and further into the jungle. What happens next? Not quite the scenario for you? How about this one instead? Imagine you end up in a small little cabin in the jungle. There are a whole bunch of other cabins there with you, and you were lucky enough to get your own. You don't have to bunk with anyone else, though there are lots of beds in your cabin, and you're just kind of happy to be there, and you have been super busy throughout the day. You've been hiking, you've gone swimming, you've gone climbing even, and you want to relax. And you go back to your cabin and pull off your shoes and toss your bags and clothes on one of the other beds, and you just kind of pass out. After what appears to be a couple hours, you wake up and you feel movement and as if you are kind of seasick. And you look out and you realize the world is moving, and you're confused why it looks like the trees are moving past you. And after a couple minutes of realization, you realize it's not the trees that are moving, it is your cabin that is moving through the jungle. And upon a closer look, you understand that it is thousands upon thousands of ants on the ground just carrying your cabin through the jungle. You have no idea where you're going, and you have no idea why the ants are carrying your cabin, but you're scared. What happens next? Not quite that scenario for you? I got another one then. Let's return to that exact same cabin. And no, it's not going to be carried away this time by thousands of ants or other bugs. But once you get to this cabin, you realize it's made of wood and a whole bunch of other things, and it's missing one important thing. There is no glass in this cabin. Where there would be glass, instead there is just nets. And there are giant nets sitting over each of the beds also. And you understand that all these nets there are to keep the bugs out of the cabin. And it feels weird, but as you're there for the couple days, you realize each day that a bug has managed to infiltrate your cabin. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know how it got there. But it's also a bug that you've never seen before and you can't recognize. The bug comes in, and after a couple minutes, it scurries away, almost as if taunting you. And you grow accustomed to the bug just showing up in the cabin, and you realize it's not going to do you any harm. But after you get so accustomed to this bug just appearing there, you wake up one of these days and that bug is no longer alone. What happens next? That should be enough with the scenarios for now. And I should specify that I had a lot of fun creating these scenarios. Not because any of these things actually happened and they're all very obscure. It's more on the fact that I never really considered bugs for a story. But before I get into that part, I should explain where this inspiration came from. Continuing off of the last episode, while I was in the Amazon, I saw a lot of animals, but I ended up seeing a lot more bugs than animals. The very first day, within like an hour, I saw 4 giant spiders that I had never even heard of before. And they were all different variety of it. And they all creeped me out. And then I continued in and wandering around the trails, I saw lots of giant butterflies and I saw lots of giant moths. And these are all insects that I had never seen before and I had never heard of before. Yes, I've heard of a butterfly and yes, I've heard of a moth and I've heard of a spider. But there are so many different varieties of those bugs than I ever realized. And I didn't realize they could all pretty much live in the exact same spot. It's weird and insane. It's not just that there's so many different varieties of insects out there. It's also the sheer multitude of insects that exist in certain places. When hiking along one of the trails, I came across one tree. And I knew it was a tree because it was the shape of a tree, but I didn't see the tree itself. Instead, on the tree was just thousands upon thousands upon thousands of ants crawling up and down it. And it just looked like the bark of the tree was just moving. It was nasty and disgusting, and you could see the ants carrying different things. They're carrying leaves, and they're carrying other bugs up and down. And my guide told me at the time that it was just a symbiotic relationship between the ants and the tree. The ants will protect the tree from all these other different creatures because they're going along, moving up and down it, but the tree will also provide sustenance for the ants. And it's just insane how that relationship works. I'd heard about it before, but I'd never actually seen it until I visited the Amazon. And I don't know if I ever want to see it again. I took videos of it and posted on Facebook and stuff like that. And my friend's like, we don't want to watch that. No, never. That's just nasty. Seeing all those insects just crawling around. But it doesn't even stop there because I continued along the trail with my guide, and my guide was super knowledgeable about everything. He was able to point out the different insects along the way, and he can name most of them. Certain areas he tells you to watch out where you're stepping because there's just insects hiding there, or there's a giant trail of ants wandering along the trail with you. You can go 3 miles and this one trail of ant is just there next to you the entire time, carrying different things. And I was informed that these ants are pretty much moving colonies. They're just moving, and they have a trail carrying stuff back and forth. It would be a very convenient way to move stuff if one person pretty much sets up an entire trail of people from one house to the next house, and you just pass along items along the way. Oh, here's a cup. Carried along, you pass to the next person. Oh, here's a book, here's another book, here's another cup, here's a plate, here's a couple of forks, and you just keep passing along. It's a convenient way to do it. It's almost how the ants were doing along that trail. And then after hiking along far enough, seeing all these different ants and bugs and spiders, my guide stopped us, and we probably did one of the weirdest things that I've ever done. We went fishing for a tarantula because tarantula live in holes in the Amazon that they just dig and they kind of use as a trap. And my guide took his machete, cut off a giant thin branch, and he removed most of the extra branches from it, leaving a couple at the end. And my group is just confused by what's going on because he doesn't tell us what he's doing. He just tells us, pull out your phone and record this. And we're like, we're just going to record you trimming a tree? He says, you'll see. So we kind of look at each other and pull out our phone and start recording a video. He takes it a step farther where he says, oh, you can't record from over there. Give me your phone. Okay. So I hand my phone over to him and he takes his machete. I'm still very confused. And he slams his machete point down into the earth and he leans my phone up against the machete. And it's pointing towards a little hole in the ground. And next thing I know, he is shoving the stick into the hole. And he's just moving the stick around the hole for a couple minutes. And eventually he pulls the stick out of the hole, and a giant tarantula emerges from the hole. My group all jumps back because we did not expect to see this, and we were close. And the tarantula just wanders around angry-like. After a few minutes, the tarantula runs back into the hole. And my guide stops recording the video and hands me my phone back, and he grabs his machete, and we continue along the way. We're all very confused by what just happened, and he explains to us that that is not a common thing, that a lot of other guides don't do that. But what he basically did was he imitated a bug by using the stick with a couple leaves at the very end of it. And that bug was enough to entice the tarantula to come out of the hole. And he knows he has a tarantula in there because the tarantula actually tugs at the stick like you're actually fishing and a fish is on the line. Super weird, super crazy, and I don't ever want to do it again. I had the video of it, and the video is insane. I don't like watching the video, but I've also watched the video a lot of times, and I keep showing it off to people because it's just too insane not to share. And like I said, that's probably one of the more insane things I've actually witnessed when it comes to bugs. And then after we went tarantula fishing, we continued hiking along the trail, and we came upon a lot of other little small cricket-like bugs. And our guide tells us these crickets are good protein, and he eats one. And then he offers them to the group. Most of my group said no. Not surprising, because who really wants to eat a bug? But some people do, and it's not uncommon where I'm from that people say, hey, I ate a cricket. I ate it. People go and eat snails, so why not a cricket from the Amazon? It's weird, okay, but to each their own. And now I feel like I'm getting slightly off topic with my bugs and my story, so I should move along and explain how I turn these stories into inspiration. Obviously, with the first scenario, I took a lot of leeway, but that's also the story that probably has the most influence from my trip. My trip, we went fishing for a tarantula. So in my scenario, we went fishing for a bug in the desert, so the character could eat. I don't ever explain what kind of bug the character caught, because that is for someone else to determine. I just gave the starting scenario. And when it comes to the butterflies, there are lots of butterflies, and people have a tendency to follow butterflies and chase them because they look kind of majestic as they fly in certain places, so why wouldn't you follow them? In my scenario, I made it dark, and this butterfly is kind of magical, so follow it. The ants, I saw that. My cabin definitely did not get carried away by ants. That probably would have scared me completely if that had happened. But it is a very interesting idea for a story. Where do the ants take you? Why are they taking you? Do they even know they're taking you? Are they just moving colonies and this is like, oh look, this is a top door of our colony and now we just kind of need to move our door and you just get placed somewhere else and the ants leave you alone? Or are they bringing you there for a nefarious means? I don't know. Interesting story ideas. And then as for that last part, yes, every single cabin and building I stayed at in the Amazon had nets instead of glass to keep the bugs out. And it's very weird to sleep under a bug net. I got used to it after a couple nights, but it's still weird. And yes, a bug appeared in my cabin. It was a cockroach, and I shooed it away. It only showed up once, and I know how it got there. It crawled under the door. But the idea that it got there through other means is fun to play with. What if there's a small hole in the net that allowed something in? What if it's a very intelligent bug that knows how to get in there, and it created a hole intentionally to get in there? In this scenario, I said it shows up and it's no longer alone. What else is there with it? Is it a second type of that bug? Is it a different creature altogether? Ideas to play with there. But the common theme for all these scenarios is they all include bugs of some kind. And bugs are the main topic I really wanted to discuss in this episode. Because when it comes to world building, how often do people actually consider the bug? You can create your fantastic realms and your realistic realms and things there, and you include your big animals that people see birds in the sky, they see cats or they see bears and things like this. But what about the little bugs there? Is that very prominent anywhere? You may throw in a spider somewhere because people know what a spider is, and you can use as a scare factor. But have you ever considered the entire bug ecosystem in some places? Or have you ever played with the idea that certain regions of your world are more prone to bugs than others? For example, here in the States where I am, I have bugs, yes, but they're not a big concern to me unless you consider the mosquito. And we every now and then get black widows and brown recluse spiders, but that's about it. And those are the major things we get that people consider. But then you hear of places like Australia where there is a spider season and every bug there is out to kill you and get you. And people are just terrified to go to Australia because of the bugs. But then you also have places like the Amazon that there are so many bugs there that are yet to be identified that no one knows what they are. And they all just coexist. 4 different spiders on the same day, and I have no idea what they all are, and they're all within like a couple dozen yards of each other. Or all these giant moths / butterflies that are existing out there, and I have no idea what they all are. And people chase them around, so you can also play with the idea that some of them are more intelligent than others. And if you're going to include bugs, are you going to include ways to maintain the bugs or control the bugs? Such as, oh, look, we're in a very hot place and we like our windows open, but we don't want the bugs to get in, so we throw in nets to keep them out. Or are your bugs not able to be contained by nets and you have to expand to glass or anything like that? Plexiglass for some places or things like that. Are the bugs small? How big are the bugs? Are they giant? Where I live, the bugs are relatively small, but where I went in the Amazon, the bugs were giant. I saw spiders bigger than my hands. I saw butterflies bigger than my hands. I saw ants larger than my fingernails. And to tell you the truth, before I went to the Amazon, I didn't care for bugs. They're not my favorite thing in the world, and I didn't like seeing them or anything like that. But I also didn't want them getting close to me. But after coming back from the Amazon, I have no issue with bugs. I saw a spider crawling across my desk the other day, and I just looked at it and I said, that's not a spider. Because I saw more terrifying spiders in the Amazon. If you're going to create a realm or a world, have you ever considered what bugs you're going to put in there? It's definitely worth considering because it changes so many perspectives. A person who comes from a place with very little bugs might be terrified if they visit somewhere else. Or if a person who is used to living with giant bugs and they go somewhere else will barely recall or barely notice a bug in a different world. And then there's the other factor that bugs carry diseases. Mosquitoes, for example, carry so many different things. Malaria, Zika, and all these different things. And people have to take tablets if they're going to the Amazon because they're afraid of the disease and catching something like that. But if you're living in the Amazon, you kind of become immune to it, so you don't worry about those malaria tablets or anything like that. So in your world, if you're going to throw bugs in there also, do your bugs carry diseases that people can catch? Is there medicine to prevent those diseases? Is it possible that your character is going to get some random, unknown, uncurable disease because they encountered some very special bug in a very foreign, exotic place? Maybe. World building is what you make it, and you don't have to describe most of it as the writer, unless it directly involves the plot. That's up to you. All I'm mentioning and saying is consider the bug, whether it's used for medicinal purposes, food, story elements, or even just entertainment like fishing. It's something unique that you can throw into a world, and it's probably something that a lot of people don't consider, so it could add an extra level to your story. But with that being said, it is time for me to call it a day and let you go, my friend. But before I do, I have a writing prompt for you. Imagine you're an individual who's staying in a little cabin, and the cabin starts to get carried away by thousands of insects. What happens next? I don't care what genre it is, if it's fiction, romance, horror, sci-fi. And I also don't care what format it is, if it's flash fiction, short fiction, poetry, nonfiction even. All I really care about is you make the most of it and have fun, because it's your story. But now I really do have to let you go. If you enjoyed the contents of this week's episode, please like and subscribe. If you are interested in more contents from the Jinks'd world, visit me at jinxedworld.com. That is JINKSDWORLD.com. And please be sure to tune into the next episode where Jinx answers the burning question of what happens when you ride her into the world of the macabre. Now enjoy the rest of your day, because I know I will.